Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another episode, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Well, today's guest works with nonprofits. Actually, her grant writing skills led to consulting, teaching all things nonprofit. Her latest project is her book, My Eyes Admired Her Beauty, Poems of Mom and Cancer. Let me welcome Rushelli Luna. Rushelli, did I pronounce your first name correctly?
Yeah, you did.
Rushelli Luna. All right. Pleasure to be here. We're talking about all things nonprofit. But as we had a conversation earlier, you brought nonprofits, the money sources into 2020, and it piqued a really, really high-pitched place in my heart when we talked about reparations. So can you help us understand what nonprofits, the community, and all this has to do with possibly how the money is allocated, how it is possibly a new form of reparation. I want to be very clear on that because this is a very significant point. Can you elaborate on that and bring us into the 2020 and nonprofits?
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. And I really appreciate when I connect with someone and they follow up and say, oh, I really like what you're saying, and inviting me to that next step of exposing what I do and what I know, because what I really want to do is teach everyone or just share my knowledge with everyone, or with anyone that wants to listen. And then in terms of your question, nonprofit, let's backtrack a little. Yes, we did have like a crazy great conversation about the first time, and now right before, we had a great conversation there going about the nonprofit industry, which I see, I've been in this space for about 12 years now. And I just kind of like to track how this industry changes and grows. Now, historically, nonprofits, they're a business kind of structure that is under a tax-free umbrella, or where you can use funding that's donated to you for purposes that serve the community. And historically, the people that serve the community were churches and politicians. So it's kind of like they were the ones that seek going after nonprofit status. And today what we're finding is that more people are starting nonprofits. So they got to learn to run it as businesses. And then now it's being used as a vehicle by the government to give funding in areas where there's underrepresentation, as well as reparation that's needed to kind of bring that community up, So I see nonprofits today in 2020 as a way for communities that haven't been striving, such as African American communities, to get a nonprofit status and use that to leverage funding that is earmarked for you.
Elaborate, please.
So if you look at what the Small Business Administration does, the SBA, they have certain business loans that are geared towards certain people. So like women, minority businesses. Now, when you look at nonprofits, and grants that the federal government or the state government have make available. And I'm talking about this strictly from I'm saying this strictly from grants that come from the government, that are made by the government, and at any stage. But if you see where that funding stream goes, it goes into communities of color, because usually we're the ones that are kind of on the ground, and we have all these different issues that have arisen based on, all the history of unrest and all that stuff in this country. Then if you look at how they word who they will give the funding to, they'll say it in that RFP or in that grant, in that call for proposals, where they'll say this is the type of people or organizations that we want to fund. If you look at African American communities, if you look at areas like Compton, Long Beach, Inglewood, and other communities outside of California, of course, you'll see that the wording of certain RFPs are geared towards these communities. So if us as African Americans look at those RFPs and see, wait, they want organizations that are serving the inner cities. They want organizations that are serving, purposes such as environmental injustice, which usually it's our urban communities that, need gardening programs, sustainable living programs, stuff like that. We're the ones that need that type of programming. Now you could get grant funding to introduce those types of programs into your community. And most of the time, only nonprofits that is serving in these communities can access that funding, right? Can qualify for that funding. Qualify, not access. I'm sorry. Let me back. Yeah. Qualify for that funding. But if we are not applying for those grants, then obviously the person who is reading the funding will go out and create an organization in that community so that they can then go after that grant. But now that we, as just regular everyday African Americans, walk in the streets, say, oh, well, we want to start a nonprofit organization. How do we get money to do a neighborhood cleanup? You can go to the government for that. How do we get money to put our kids through college or vocational training or anything like that? You start an organization, you apply for funding that would allow you to make scholarships for people in your community. You see? So it's the way I look at it. I don't know if everyone look at it this way. I would look at it as a form of reparation, just in the fact that the wording in those RFPs say, okay, this is who we're going to fund. This is what that person or that community should look like, that this money is going to go to. And so all we need to do is read the fine prints and go out and try to access that funding. You see?
That is some exciting stuff, because we pay taxes, we live, breathe, move in our communities, and there are things that need to be done. So if I hear you correctly, if we take it upon ourselves to form a nonprofit, and we read the fine print, and we get with somebody such as yourself who knows the ins and outs, we can throw our hat in the ring and we can make some major changes in our community. Is that what I hear you say?
Exactly what you hear me saying.
Wow.
Perfect. Yes. It's like, if we sit back and we say, oh, I'm looking for money, but you're not reading what's out there. Or even if someone tell you, hey, there's grant funding over here that you could potentially qualify for, are you following up and going back to look to see if you really qualify for that funding?
Okay.
You see? Now, and then taking the steps necessary to then access that funding.
The steps necessary to access it, wow, that's something that I was just going to ask you. just because we say that we want that money, we do have to qualify, and there are certain things that we have to have in place. We can't. It's just like if my neighbor says, "I want to build a playground down the street here," there are steps and protocols and things we have to have in place so that this is successful. How successful will a person be if they just say, I'm going to do this, I'm going with the paperwork, never done it before, but I'm going to give it a try? Speak to that. What is that, a futile uh, uh, something that you're going to do? Are you wasting your time, or is it something that it's worth somebody going for?
Um, I think as long as you realize that, if for you to start a nonprofit is a business and it needs to be run like a business, which means you need to put in place everything that a nonprofit business needs, such as, you have to have board members. It's going to be a public benefit organization, which means it's there for the public. You're not going to get profits from it. Yes, you can pay yourself for the work that you're doing, but you won't profit from it. You at the end of the year, if you have an extra grant of $5,000, you're not going to say, oh, well, I'm going to put this in my pocket. Then it's like, as long as you understand the concepts of running a nonprofit as a business, and then going after that funding to actually do what you say you want to do with the funding, then starting a nonprofit business is the way for you to start going after those types of grant funding or any type of grant funding that's out. Because if you look at most most grant announcements, most of them, even if they have a few that says that it'll go to an individual, a majority of grants go to nonprofit organizations, because whoever that grantor is, the federal government, they'll give you the money, but they won't tax themselves on that money later on, So then it's tax-free money that you're getting from taxpayers. And then if you were to get funding from, let's say, like a foundation or something like that, for them, it's like a tax deduction that they get to claim and all that. So, yeah.
It's a business. You definitely need to know what you're doing because it seems to me whenever money is involved, you definitely need to know when it's coming in, how it's going out, the end result of that outgoing, and be able to report back to people, the people that gave it to you, or else I think you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Am I correct?
Yes, and yes. There's been cities that apply for grant funding. Like, your city leader can apply for grant funding from the federal government, and then say, oh, I'm going to do this with the city. And then they end up not doing that and doing whatever they said, and then they have to repay that grant. So if you don't do what you say you're going to do in that proposal, and let's say the whoever come out and say, well, I want to audit what you've done, show me your numbers, and you don't have anything to show, you don't have receipts, you don't have your bookkeeping up, you don't have certain things in order, then they could request their money back.
Wow. Do you think that's what's happening with this thing of homelessness? And it's not just in LA, it's everywhere. What's going on with that and the nonprofits and the grants? Or am I looking in the wrong direction when it comes to this homeless problem?
Oh, the homeless problem. Oh, when I look at the homeless problem, I'm just like, it's such a compounded problem. It's like a problem on top of a problem on top of another problem, You have population growth, more people migrate into the United States. You have mental health issues. There's people living on the street that, they just don't know how to function in a home. So, they turn to the streets. And it I think the homeless issue is like, it's a big issue that nonprofits need to work. Like, there need to be multiple venues for us to be able to solve the or there's multiple ways that we need to attack the issue of homelessness in our communities, because it's not just the lack of funding. There is lack of funding there, but also here in California, high rent in other states like New York as well, high rent. So we need rent control. Then of course you have the population growth kind of thing where we're just, the United States is just getting bigger, more people move in here and whatnot. So the government need to have that infrastructure where I think, in my opinion, in every 10 to 15 to 20 years, they're reevaluating how are these babies being born today gonna move out of their parents' house later on down the line, and how are we gonna transition that as smoothly as possible? Because I don't know the statistics right now, and I really wish that I had at least like browsed some articles before our conversation. But if you look at who is homeless, it's like it's mental health, people that have mental issues, and it's young people, that's drifters, they're moving out of their parents' house and not being able to find housing, and I mean, there's stuff that support what I'm saying in terms of, if you look at maybe the adoption system. One of their big pushes was, first, it was the introduction of a bill that would extend support to foster youths all the way up until they're like 24 or 26, And so making sure that even kids that aren't in foster care systems, but low income communities, such as low income communities where parents typically say at 18 or 21 you're an adult, which means you need to go out, you need to go into the world and forge your way. You need to consider, where are they going?
Yes.
And not just take care of the foster population, but also the population of low income earners that are eventually going to tell their kids, hey, you need to go find somewhere else to live, you need to build your life. And where do they go when the cost of housing is going up,
Yes.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the housing issues, yes, the government is doing, they're making grants for you to be able to do development and all that stuff. But for a nonprofit, what we really need to do is partner with development companies and for-profit real estate companies, so that they could build out the housing necessary, be very creative in how we build housing, knowing that the population is just going to keep growing. So how do we make space for everyone to live, So it's multiple solutions there that you just need to be creative when it comes to homelessness. And everyone needs to be involved, from the nonprofits to the for-profits to the government. Everyone needs to be involved in that issue.
It's cross party lines and just be humanity come together. Let's do something about this. Is that downtown LA? I'm going to tell you the truth. I used to work down there, and it's just, oh my God, I don't even want to go to the flower mart anymore. It's just so horrible down there. It's really something.
Yeah,
but you know what?
We need to clean up our streets, and it needs to be a community effort. It really needs to be everyone saying, I live here, I work here, I play here, I want it to look this way, and then you make that effort to make sure it looks that way.
And stays that way. Let's plan it so that it can stay that way.
Exactly.
I got you. Wow. Thanks for taking that question on, because I know it's, all the news channels, everybody's talking about it. But you that's been with the nonprofit world for so long, I just want to get your take. Another thing I want to get your take on, Rushelli, is this thing, and you touched on it. The United States is growing, and I'm looking here in LA County. When we look at our neighborhoods, and nonprofits really do shape our neighborhoods, our cities. What do you see happening for us in 2020 with immigration, and we have more people coming in, and not just, just what's your take on that? How are we, as people that have taken on this thing of becoming a nonprofit, are they going to have to pivot and shift, or are they going to have to hire strong grant writers so that they can branch out their services, or what's your take?
So my take in terms of immigration and nonprofits is that, let's say you're starting a nonprofit to serve that population, because when I think about immigration, I'm all for immigration. I
Mm-hmm.
myself am an immigrant, so it's an opportunity. And if you understand what kind of dreams you can have in America, it's
Mm.
why people are attracted to come in here. And then it is a country built on immigration. It's
Yes.
like the first people, not the first Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it I don't want to like be politically incorrect in any
No, I
way,
know
but
what you're saying.
okay.
I know. I hear you.
So we were immigrants. This country is an immigrant country. It belongs to the Native Americans, not to us.
Yes.
So that's like first and foremost. So when we talk immigration, we can't say, oh, we're going to close our borders to immigration when that's what our country was built on. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's moving us all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of nonprofits, I don't think we close our doors to immigration to immigrants. I think what we do is we look forward thinking, okay, immigrants are going to be coming in. Each of these communities, like let's if you look at like the Jewish population, when their
Mm-hmm.
immigrants come in, they have a foundation. They have ways that they set up these their immigrants or their migrants so that they can support them as soon as they come in. So they come into the country, they go in, they see a legal firm that will help them with their paperwork to get them into the United States system, and then they get them on the road to be able to survive in America. We need
Yes.
more organizations like that when you're thinking of people coming in from the Caribbean countries and from Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to start if you want to start a nonprofit that's going to help this situation, then you start a nonprofit that's going to help these people navigate the government system in the United States, because a lot of times they're coming from countries that don't have very strong government strongholds, or there's a lot of unrest in the areas that they're coming
Mm-hmm.
in. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important for us to support these people. They journeyed all the way here, they made it. So now
Mm-hmm.
you create vehicles that's going to help them, that's going to support them in um, really learning how to live in this country and how to be here legally. Because I think the bigger issue there in terms of immigration is that once they come in, a lot of them just start living and working and not paying taxes. Now, if we're not
Mm-hmm.
paying and if we're not paying into our tax system, then you know that's money that's not being recycled back into the economy, or back
Yes.
into the infrastructure of our country. So then it's important for us to say, okay, we know that we are a land of immigration and a land of immigrants. So how do we get these people on their feet quickly, right? And then that's a problem that you're solving as a nonprofit organization. I'm going to start my organization. I'm going to do document processing. I'm going to help these. I'm going to find housing. I'm going to build housing that's for the immigrant community. I'm going to advocate for them to be able to work right off the bat, like, or within
Mm-hmm.
3 months of moving in. We're going to advocate for them to be able to get their workers permit. That way they can work in America and pay American taxes.
Well, I think you just outlined, and for someone who's had this moving in their heart as something that they'd like to do, I think that you just outlined a very viable, necessary, valuable nonprofit. So thanks for laying that groundwork, because the fact that the conversation even came up, there has to be somebody, a group of people, a bunch of people who are tired of looking at what's going on the news and decide, I want to do something about it. And to form a nonprofit is how you can definitely do something about it. Thanks. I thank you for your candor. I brought you on because I know that you're the expert and you're wrapping my mind around some things, because we are parts of a community.
Well,
So
those were great questions. It's like, whoa, I didn't know I was going to be asked that, but that's super cool.
well,
Yeah.
see that I'm just a very curious person, and sometimes I write down the questions and I'll submit them to a person, but then everything takes another goes down another road. And
Yeah,
when we
no, this
spoke
is
of
great conversation.
Okay, glad you like it. Well, we're going to flip it a little bit because I'm looking
Okay.
at the time, and I want you to elaborate and introduce your latest project, which is your book. You're not a first-time author. You are, of course, are an author dealing with nonprofits, but this is more on a personal take. Your book, My Eyes Admired Her Beauty, Poems of Mom and Cancer. You want to take a few minutes and just tell us something about your latest book?
Sure. I actually have two books. So one of them, the first one, and I mean my latest book, as in I'm a very new author. I published my first book in November, and then my second book, which is online, it's available on my website, on my nonprofit building website. That one is, I released that one this month. So
Wow.
my eyes admired her beauty. Poems of Mom and Cancer is just my personal feelings um, going through cancer with my mom, who passed away 2 years ago from um, breast cancer, which had it was like the second time she went through it. So it was like
Mhm.
the cancer came, and then she got a mastectomy, got it all removed, and then 10 years later it came back even more aggressive, and within 6 months she was gone.
Mhm.
So that book was, it's just I guess my healing vehicle to talk about her and what she represented to me. She was very supportive of the work that I was doing. And so, I felt like I need to put something out that's creative for her, because
Mhm.
I'm a writer. Like, I'm a grant writer. I write and I do all these other things like learn. That way I could
Mhm.
just teach, or I could just tell
Yes.
people like, hey, this is what's available to you. And I think she appreciated that, and I appreciated her support so much. It's like so missed.
Yes.
So it's like um, that's what that book was. It's the creative side of me. It's me exploring my creative writing, and going back to that creative writing space.
Mhm.
Whereas I've been in the proposal writing space for so long, where I'm just talking nonprofits, program building, fundraising, board development. I'm
Mhm.
always just in this mental space of nonprofit. So as a nonprofit, as a executive leader, or as a leader of a nonprofit, I took some time to like self-care, go deep into my feelings on losing my mom and what that meant for me in the space, in the journey that I'm going
Mhm.
through. And I came up with this book that I'm really excited about. It's like it's my number one baby project, because it allows me to be as creative as possible. Yeah.
And it's necessary. So many of us have lost mothers and behind breast cancer or ovarian cancer, all kinds of cancers. So I'm
Mhm.
sure that your work will your baby will be ministering to many women and men, helping them to heal also. Um, wow, and it takes a lot of strength to be able to produce a book like that. So congratulations. I'm sorry about your mom, but congratulations on you being strong enough to continue on to give something to the world and share her with the world.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I,
And another thing that I do, like in terms of my book, I want to, one of the big themes of this book for me was taking the wisdom and the knowledge that I learned from her, and
Mhm,
then keeping it going, and then making sure that it shows in my work, in
mhm,
the work that I do. Um, I am very connected to like my mother and my grandmother, and anyone that I felt is anyone that I feel can bring knowledge and wisdom to me, not knowledge, wisdom.
yes.
um, so, when you look at their journeys, then nonprofit works, it really makes sense. When you
Mhm,
look at the things that they teach you, then it makes sense that you go for community, you fight for the community, you do what you need to do in the community, you give back to the community how you need to,
Yes.
I think that's what we should learn from the people, from our people as they're passing, because the today isn't promised to anyone. But
Hmm.
if you speak your wisdom and you speak your knowledge then becomes wisdom in someone else's ear, and then they could then use that to fuel whatever journey they're going to be on. So that's what the book was really about. It's capturing all the wisdoms. And I mean, in every moment as I'm walking to the store, whatever, I could hear my mom's wisdom in saying, oh, don't do this or do it this way, or.
Yes.
So yeah,
Oh,
it's just giving
wow.
homage to that ancestry line that's still there, that connection that's still there.
That's powerful. That's some powerful, powerful talk. That's the way to live. I totally agree. Wow. Rushelli Luna, you are a bad sister. That's all I can say. You bring so much life and light to the communities, to those that want to start their nonprofits, those that are running their nonprofits. I would imagine that this is I mean, just listening to you, and I had another guest on last year, this nonprofit stuff, to start one is no joke. And
Hmm.
it is not for the faint of heart. And to maintain so that you continue to serve your community is not for the faint of heart. So you have to continually learn and be present. So thank you for the California Center for Economic Initiatives. Thank you for starting that. For folks that want to reach out to you, let's see, let's start out with sending them to your website. And I have it down for ccfei.org.
Hmm. Hmm.
For Rushelli
And
Luna.
And when you go there, you can find courses on how to start your nonprofit. You can find our membership portfolio, which is a development toolbox, which has like all my knowledge and all my, I like to create things. So I create programs, resources, templates, for you to guide you through your journey of starting your nonprofit. So it includes access to like your step-by-step, what you need to do, step one, step two, step three, to start your nonprofit if you're a do-it-yourselfer. And I do recommend that people start their nonprofits on their own. Even if you need help with like the paperwork, it's still good for you to be able to eyeball that paperwork to say, wait a minute, I can write this in. It's just a form. I could, but
Mm-hmm.
as you're going into the work of nonprofit, because it is it is a it is it's kind of something that comes from the heart. It's something
Yes.
that's gotta come from the heart, and you gotta be connected with this journey that you're gonna take when you start a nonprofit. So
Mm-hmm.
I do have like step-by-step resources to get you your 501c3 status, in addition to other digital things that you might need. So like how to find grants, how to build your board, um, how to what you need to do, next steps once you've gotten your 501c3 status. What are your next steps? How do you start recording what you need to, your budgets, all that stuff? Everything in one development toolbox is available. Yeah. And then
So
I
this,
also have a book, my other book. It's called the 21 Day Fundraising Challenge, which is just my knowledge of fundraising and how to
mm,
go about creating like an annual event for your nonprofit, because I believe that having annual events, like right out the door, you start yourself up for success by hosting your first event that's going to introduce you to the world or introduce you to the community. And then that event should become annual. So I do
mhm.
have a guide to planning some type of annual event in my book,
Wow.
21
Now,
Day
I
Fundraising
wasn't planning
Challenge.
on asking you this, but since you brought that up, just real quick, I want to ask if since you say a nonprofit should really start up that annual event, plan that right out the gate. Should they plan with another and collaborate with people in the community? Is that the best way to uh, is that a good thought? Is that a good thing for you to go ahead and collaborate with others in the community that are they mirror and they walk in the same shoes as your nonprofit? They're just doing it another way.
Yes, of course. I mean, partnerships, it's really important that we just connect and partner with each other. That way we're not stepping on each other's toes and saying, oh, well, I was doing this first. You
Uh-huh.
might be doing it first, but I will do it different, or, you know, so it's
That's right.
that collaboration at a community level, I think is just, serving that humanistic purpose of us being able to connect with each other.
Hmm.
In terms of your event now, um, it's what works for you. As you're
Hmm.
working in the nonprofit space, it's a lot going on. There's a lot of fundraising. Again, if you think about who start nonprofits, it's like politicians and churches who are always fundraising. So you have
Hmm.
a lot of competition, but just making your mark, that's what's really important. Just saying, hey, I'm here. I feel like that's the really important, part of doing your first couple fundraisers, like just to say, hey, I'm here, the community, I'm here. If you need to, if you're looking for something to support, then we're here. It's really just standing up and saying, introducing yourself. But I think that it's what works for you in terms of how you're going to fundraise. um,
Hmm.
and I mean, there's so many different types of nonprofit organizations. So it's it could be that you're running just you might be actually doing that community work where you're in the streets every day,
Hmm.
um, you know, solving issues for community members. But then you also have those silent nonprofits that are doing the advocacy work. There's
Okay.
the lawyers who start nonprofits so that they could go into prison systems and try to get people that are, wrongly accused out. So there's a lot of
Hmm.
different types of nonprofit. So when you look at it, you want to say, okay, what would work for my organization in terms of being able to raise funds consistently?
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Wow, that's another conversation, and we'll definitely have to come back for that one, because this river does run deep. Nonprofits. I just
Yeah.
want people to also know that when they go to your website, they can hook on to. They can go to your Facebook page, your Twitter page. Those links are right there on your website. And if Rushelli Luna, her phone number is 888-603-5561. Wow. Thank you,
Wow.
dear lady. You have really given us a lot to understand about our community. And going into 2020, we need to know what's really going on. As Marvin Gaye says, what's going on? We need to know. So thank you so very much. I appreciate you and all of the work that you've done. You're not a novice. You've been in this for 12 years and you have a lot of milestones under your belt. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for all the great questions you asked. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, you know what? I always say, and well, last year I always said it, you can't listen to a conversation here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation, not one time, not twice. And especially if you're looking to become a nonprofit, you're going to have to listen to this as many times as it takes for you to understand what goes into a nonprofit, what is needed. Rushelli actually pinpointed a nonprofit that is very needed. It's necessary in our community. So if this is your calling, this is where you're headed, then get in contact with Rushelli Luna. Be sure to listen to this conversation again and again. I want to draw people over to my website, her business, margolevette.com. That's where all of these shows, you can binge listen to all of the shows from, gosh, we are on season 14. So that tells you there are a lot of shows over there. Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation is all about helping you reinvent yourself and giving you the information, the how-to information, the instruction, the inspiration as you are reinventing to become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. So until next week, I have to say bye-bye. Thanks for listening. See you later.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do. Right now, go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.